Hi, Danny.
To be with you again
Yeah.
after 2 years.
Yeah, I wanted to say actually that I miss you. Your
Yeah.
impact here was very, very impressive. And I'm very glad about your new position. So let me just say that you're now the director at Yad Vashem. And for 4 years, you were here as general counsel, yeah. And
4 years to the day.
Yeah, and you
But
did.
who counts?
Well, you had I witnessed the wonderful initiatives that you created, and how sensitive you were to the many different communities here, and to the different Jewish communities. So I'm very glad to be here with you. Congratulations on your new job. This is an important mission, a mitzvah even, to do what you're doing today. This mission is more relevant than ever, given that anti-Semitism is on the rise, even here in the United States. You invest a lot in education. How does the Holocaust education and awareness help curb the rise and spread of anti-Semitism?
Well, you know, Carrie, I must admit that when I came to serve as Consul General of Israel to New York back in August 2016, I thought that anti-Semitism will not be in a high place in my agenda. Actually, I must confess that I thought that anti-Semitism somewhat sometimes exaggerated by Jewish organizations for fundraising purposes. But then reality slapped on my face. It started gradually. It started with the desecration of cemeteries. I remember flying to Rochester, New York for a desecrated Jewish cemetery, and then Philadelphia, and a swastika here and there. But then came the most impactful moment of my term here, that was Pittsburgh.
I remember you going there, yeah.
I arrived to Pittsburgh when the bodies of the 11 Jews slain in that attack were still lying on the ground on the shul. It reminded me of another instance in which I came to a place in which bodies were still lying on a house. In that case, that was the Fogel family in Itamar. And then Poway, California, Jersey City, a kosher grocery, and Monsey, a Hanukkah celebration. 15 Jews murdered in this country in 2 years. Now, I'm not implying, I will not imply that Holocaust education is the recipe to end anti-Semitism, but definitely it has an important role. And you know, when dignitaries come to Yad Vashem, and all the visiting dignitaries come, one of the next one will be President Biden next month. I tell them that we are not in Europe of the 30s regarding anti-Semitism. No, Baruch Hashem, we are still far from it. But the difference between us and the generation of the 30s, the Jewish generation, the non-Jewish generation of the 30s of the last century, is that we have the experience they lacked. We know that it can happen. Probably they didn't imagine that it can. We know that it can. That anti-Semitism, if it's not confronted forcibly, decisively, immediately, can metastasize into something with monstrous dimensions. So I tell them that's your obligation, not the Jewish obligation. It's the non-Jewish leaders' obligation to fight anti-Semitism. And definitely, visiting Yad Vashem, you understand why.
Yeah. As time passes, we're moving further and further away from the events of the Holocaust. And the number of survivors, as we know, is decreasing. How does that affect the Holocaust remembrance?
Yeah, that's very sad that we are preparing Yad Vashem, unfortunately, for the era in which there will be no actual witnesses. People tell me constantly, and we do that, you have to hurry up and take testimonies, film testimony from survivors, and we do that with a frenzy and with a sense of mission. But you know, Carrie, I never forget that 6 million Jews, anyway, were never able to to give testimony, to sit in front of a camera and present their testimony or sit in front of a laptop and type their memoirs.
That's a good point.
And that's the reason we are so obsessed, and I use the word that usually is a negative word, obsession. We are obsessed in gathering documentation. We have more than 200 million documents in our archive, and we continue. As we speak, our experts are in the Vatican, gathering information for the first time in what probably was the last black hole of Holocaust documentation. And the reason is, A, for the future, to be able to confront the denialists and the distortionists that will raise their heads when no more survivors, witnesses will be amongst us. But that is also a duty we have for the victims.
Yeah.
We have, the Shoah was a murder of 6 million Jews, but I never forget that it was also 6 million murders of one Jew each. And each Jew counts, and we have to remember him personally or her personally and to know everything about him or her.
Yeah, that's very true and moving. There's a question that has to be asked these days. I mean, the images coming out of Ukraine are heartbreaking. You see men and women and children killed, families torn apart and having to flee the country. And many who see these, who are watching these very heartbreaking scenes, claim that these images are very reminiscent of the Holocaust. Are you seeing a Holocaust unfold before our very eyes, or do you feel a distinction has to be made here?
You know, Carrie, that President Zelensky wanted to speak in Yad Vashem. Via Zoom, but was an audience in Yad Vashem. And after giving it a very careful consideration, I refused.
Oh.
And the reason that I refused, I asked him to speak in the Knesset. And the reason I did it is that he wanted to speak in Yad Vashem to say what is happening in Ukraine is the Shoah. Now, we have to be very clear about this, Kari. There are war crimes being committed in Ukraine. No doubt about it. Whoever saw the scenes from Bucha knows that terrible war crimes were done there. But not every war crime is a genocide, and not every genocide is Shoah. The Shoah, the murder, the extermination, the systematic extermination of 1/3 of our people is a unique event, and Yad Vashem is dedicated only to them. You know, 6 million Jews that were murdered in the Shoah deserve an institution that is dedicated to them and only to them. Not because we think that other killings are not important. They are. But they ordered us to establish an institution to remember them. That is our mission.
That's true. This is your third trip to New York since assuming the chairmanship of Yad Vashem, and a very exciting one with your daughter's graduation and all.
That's right.
Congratulations. What do you hope to gain from this trip? How is Yad Vashem going to be more present in the US and specifically in New York?
I think it's very important that I intend to go global. I think that Holocaust remembrance cannot be something that we restrict to Israelis or to Jews. We have to make sure that Holocaust remembrance is kept all over the world. I met in this visit both Governor Katie O'Cool and Mayor Eric Adams. We are going to strengthen Holocaust education both at the state level and city level, also Holocaust commemoration. And you know what, Carrie? I was also in this trip in Toronto, Canada, and I saw a Holocaust memorial in a park in Toronto, and I suddenly realized something that surprised me. There is no Holocaust memorial in New York City. There is a museum.
That's true.
But there is no Holocaust memorial in New York City. I think that's inconceivable that in the city with the largest Jewish population outside of Israel, there is no memorial for the Shoah. I think we should correct that.
Okay, so I'm looking forward to your next step, and I'm glad that we can still feel your impact here, Danny. Thank you, and I'm sure that your success in your job will be ours too. Thank you.
Thank you so much.